See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go to look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he is happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should perish. Right, it's a short passage. He says a lot, but it's a short passage. And it's again just Jesus saying, I love my people, but my people sometimes get themselves into trouble. I didn't get the video, I should have, but probably you've all seen it. It gets passed around quite often. The video of he's a shepherd. Looks like they're probably in Ireland or England, Scotland, somewhere like that. And there is a sheep caught in this small little stream-sized canal, and it can't get out. It's fallen down in there, and it can't get out. And then the farmer comes along, the shepherd comes along, and he helps the sheep out. And what does the sheep do? Well, in this video, it runs a couple of little circles and laps, and then runs right back in and falls right down back in there again. And that is the Christian life, is it not? That's my life. Is that your life? There are those who said yes, those who lied, and those who were like, he's not supposed to know that. Yes, I am, and yes, you do. Okay, so this is who we are, and Jesus is talking about that situation. My people every now and then get themselves into a fix, and they wander off. And whether that's because of old sins that pop back up, or whether that's unhealthy curiosities, or whatever that is, they go and they get themselves caught in a situation they can't get back from by themselves. We've all been there at some time or another, stuck in a situation. We don't know how in the Lord, and unfortunately we believe the devil's lies sometimes, that we start to think, I guess this is who I am now, because God sure isn't going to want to take me back. But that's not the language you hear here from Jesus at all. He doesn't say, and good riddance, at all. Look at what he says. He says, what do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 and go and search out that sheep and look for him and work to bring him back? Yeah, he will. Jesus is saying, isn't that common sense? This is what you would do in my situation? And of course he does. He uses another word down in verse 13. If he finds it, truly I tell you, he is what? Happy. He's happier. Aren't we convinced in our shame and in our guilt? Weren't Adam and Eve hiding in the bushes because they were convinced of shame and guilt? That the last person who would be happy to see us again would be God? And yet Jesus says he is happier. To be happier, you got to be happy in the first place. Isn't that something? So Jesus is not saying you need to go and shame them, punish them, beat them, and everything else, but you need to go and find them and rejoice. So as we start this, that should be what's in our head. That should be our image of Jesus when we talk about seeking out somebody who is struggling and wandering and lost. And that should be the image in our head if we ever find ourselves as the one who is lost. One of the most frustrating things in ministry is how many times you will try to go and rescue somebody. You'll try and go and find the wanderer, and they are so deeply convinced because of their shame and guilt that nobody wants them back, Jesus or the church. And they just refuse to return. Not because they're stubborn in their sin, but because they are so convinced nobody wants me there. And sometimes they get locked in that mindset, and the whole church can be there trying to convince them otherwise. But there's so much broken inside, they just don't believe it. He wants us to do our best job, to live in such a way and to search in such a way and to find in such a way that they can find a way to believe it. Okay? He is happier about the one sheep than about the 99 who wandered off. I want to look at the way he words a few of these things. So the first is, he says, do not despise one of these little ones. Do not despise these little ones. I've got it worded here, don't despise someone that God highly values, because that's what little ones is all about. It's all about his love, and it's a term of endearment. So, What does it mean to despise? There's a few different things that it can mean. Sometimes we think about despising somebody means that we have an active hatred for that person. Well, that's certainly included in the list of things that do not despise one of these little ones would mean. No Christian has the right to hate a brother or a sister. We live in a world right now where we are trying to justify in our culture hatred in the name of Jesus. I can hate them if I disagree with them on economics. I can hate them if I disagree with them on morality. I can hate them if I disagree with them over geographic issues. I can hate them if I disagree with them over politics. And we're wrong. Nowhere does God ever give a Christian the license to hate their neighbor. Disagree, yes, but hate, never. You have to love your enemy, and you have to love your neighbor, and between those two, that's everybody. No matter what the disagreement is, our job is to show love. More than that, if you really believe that somebody you disagree with and you're struggling in your emotions with, if you really believe that they are deeply, morally wrong, you actually have then not the right to hate, but you have the responsibility to rescue. The person you disagree with the most is your personal mission field. But James already said I didn't like him. Yeah, so maybe 2 people need to repent, not 1. Right? Because you're not supposed to just like them. You are supposed to agape, self-sacrificing, love them. Now, how different would our world be if just the Christians alone would try that? I didn't even say be 100% successful at overcoming yourself to do it. But if we just tried that, would things change? You better believe it. Well, then what are we waiting for? Because that's actually our mission. That's our calling. And we can't fulfill this one until we believe that. Because we will always find a reason not to talk to somebody who's wandered away. We will find an excuse. And that finding of an excuse, you may have no active hatred in your heart at all. The finding of an excuse not to is to despise them. And why do I say that? So this morning, I mentioned Wednesday night, really trying to work on my personal diligence in taking time in the morning to spend some time alone with God and spend some time in prayer and things like that, and to read and to listen and pray. Okay, so I'm out on the back porch and I'm doing that. And I encourage you, find your place and do that and fight for that time. But I'm on the back porch and I'm doing that. And every now and then, certainly not every day, but every now and then, I will grab my Spanish Bible. That is because I also am really, I'm frustrated with the lack of progress, but determined not to give up. So I read better than I speak, okay? Because I can read at my speed, but speak at somebody else's speed, that's a whole different thing, right? That's a whole different thing. So I took my Spanish Bible out there, and I read one of my favorite Psalms. I read another one that also was, every now and then you read something in a different language, and you're like, I think they got that better than we did. And I read that one, I thought, that's pretty cool. Every now and then there'll just be a word or an expression that hits you differently. And so I like to do that. Another thing I'll do when I'm studying sometimes is I'll go back to my old Russian Bible, and I'll just see what word they use. Because those translators, it just gives you a different perspective on, now why do you think that they worded it that way? So I like the way this morning in Matthew 18, he says, do not despise the little ones. Don't worry, you're not going to get a Spanish lesson. But the word, and I'm not going to do Greek either, the word is a word that literally in the Spanish is it's a compound word that means to make less precious. Maybe even more literally, to take preciousness away from. That's better than English, isn't it? To take the preciousness away from. And isn't that really what Jesus is saying? Do not take the preciousness of my little ones away from them. Don't see them as less than precious. See, disagreements or frustrations or a judging condemnation of whatever their sin is will make us see them as less than. And seeing another sinner as less than, first off, is hypocritical because we've been sinners too. And we're going to fail at times too. So that's kind of silly of us to do that. But worse, it makes us less likely to care enough to go and rescue. Instead, we'll say, well, you know what they got into. I'm not talking to them anymore. Well, how are you going to do this? You can't be like Jesus with that attitude. You can't accomplish the work of Jesus with that attitude. You condemn someone to their lostness with that attitude. And Jesus says, don't see them any less precious than I do. Love them, care for them, chase them, rebuild them, reconcile them, forgive them. This is what he wants us to do and what he wants us to see here. Don't just look down on what they've done, and certainly don't look down on them. Again, for us, that's just hypocritical. I have been convinced for a long time that the more common form of hatred is indifference. And maybe the most common to kill another person's faith is indifference. Not that many people go out actively hating on each other. It happens. I mean, you'd look at the news and argue with me on that. But you know what I'm saying. Most Christians aren't going to leave here this morning and go start hating on somebody. But indifference, while watered down, is just as powerful and leaves people locked in their lostness. And we need to be very careful that we don't give into that. Sometimes it's because of the way we see each other. The way I've worded this is that it's you. Heaven sees you differently. Because I believe that when we really understand how God sees us, then we start to see other people differently. I believe when we really understand the depth of God's grace for us, then we want to go and share that with somebody else. And that will become our drive and become our focus and our fuel for that. So we need to understand how deeply God loves us and how deeply He has given us this incredible grace. So, how does God see you? I want to start first with the contrast. How does the world see you? Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, we don't even need to go down that list. It doesn't see you at all. Sometimes the world just flat does not care. All you are is a possible check. Well, nobody uses checks. You're a possible debit card at transaction. And that's it. You look at the way people are talked about so often now, and you know that's true. You're just a number, and you're just a possible prophet, and that can be it. Sometimes even the people you work with, you're just somebody that they're stuck with, and that's frustrating, and it's not how we want to be seen, and I hope as Christians that's never how we want to see somebody else, but that's true. Why is that? Because this is the filter a lot of people are looking through. Do they have any prominence that I can benefit from? Do they have any power that could benefit me? Do they have any influence that maybe I could use to my advantage? Do they have status that will rub off on me and make other people think more of me? If I sit next to them at a banquet, do other people go, oh wow, look who he's with? Are they useful to me? And if the answer to none of those things, no, I'm not prominent, I don't have a lot of power, middling influence at the most, and zero status, nobody cares, and am I useful? Oh, good night, I hope not. Right? Sometimes that's how we might see ourselves, and sometimes that's how they see us. And so they just walk right on by and do not care. And if a Christian family sees one another that way, then very quickly you have layers of importance. And when somebody wanders off, whether or not they will be chased and redeemed will depend on the answers to these questions. Well, are they a giver? Were they in an important role? Did they lead in worship? Were they active in volunteering? Yeah, we'll go get them. Were they quiet, kind of stayed to themselves, and we don't know them that well? Oh well. That's not, you can feel the ungodliness in that, can't you? It happens. It sometimes happens. Jesus is telling us that's not how heaven sees you at all. Not the Father, the Son, the Spirit, or the angels at all. They see you as precious, as worthy, as valuable, and worth chasing after over rocks and hills and valleys and streams. He will chase us down because He loves us that much. Because to Him we are precious, and we are loved, and we are seen. So often people need, they don't even know that's what it is, but they need to just even know that somebody sees them. We're worth protecting. We dare not. If you can't read that, I'll read it for you. We dare not treat as insignificant someone, anyone, everyone whom the Father regards as precious. We are all God's children. I used to have some of you know this story, I used to have a bus route in upstate New York, in Albany. And first thing in the morning, I would go pick up kids who were in a special program, and it was a disciplinary program. I was having to drive them like 20, 25 miles each way through New York traffic and snow, and to take them to a school program in another school district because they had basically been kicked out of every school in their own school district because of disciplinary issues. Some of them I couldn't figure out what they had done. They didn't seem like kids that would be kicked around like that. Some of them, it was rather obvious, and I'd like to kick them to another bus too, just to be honest. That is very difficult kids to deal with. But some of them really, it was interesting, the dynamic. I had two routes, and so there was really two groups of kids. The older group, the high school-aged kids. There was a young man in there who was caught up in a gang, very quiet, respectful to me, but very quiet. There was another kid who was never, ever quiet. He really wanted the kid who was quiet to respect him. And so he tried really way too hard. And then there was another young lady whose father was in jail and whose mother had just been sent to prison. And just a terrible, terrible situation. She was really struggling and having a difficult time. And the kid who was really yacky, to me he was a fun kid to have on the bus, but he was really yacky. He was always saying, now you know we're all God's children. We're all God's children. Doesn't matter what's going on, we're all God's children. And then he would say, he knew I was a minister. I was working, it's not a New York thing actually, I was working for a Texas company that did not allow us to talk about our faith on the bus. And they had cameras to know what you were talking about. And so I couldn't say a lot, but I could nod, and I could nod and do things, right? So we communicated. So he would say, we're all God's children, right, James? Mm-hmm. And if anybody needs to talk to you, they can talk to you, right, James? And I would nod. And this young lady got on the bus after her mother went to prison, and she was saying that, she didn't know what to do, and she didn't know how she was going to make it, and she's really in just this horrible situation. He's being a very good friend, okay? And he then says to her, we're all God's children. And if you need anything, I'm here. And I bet James up there is here. Yeah, and all of this. What we have to remember is that is the truth. Sometimes it'll be spoken out of the mouths of a worldly lost kid more often than it's spoken out of our own. And that should never be, should it? I don't know where he has ended up. I don't know what's going on in any of their lives. But I pray that he himself, too, remembers that. Because we are all God's children. And he does want every one of us to be found. So much so, Jesus says, he will leave the 99. He'll walk out of this room full of people who showed up to go find those who are lost, who are struggling, and who are really overwhelmed. He will gladly do it. And he's calling us to be the same kind of people. One thing we have to remember, just because somebody wanders off, they may see themselves. I've made a big mistake, or my life has changed so much in ways that were terrible, whatever. They may see themselves as, well, I'm not really a part of that anymore. Because that's spiritually how they feel. And it may spiritually, in a way, be true. But do you believe for a second that because they believe that and feel that, and maybe even have had the unfortunate situation of a brother or a sister being goofy enough to make them feel that way, do you believe for a second God sees it that way? Or is God relentless? Is God one who will never give up on you and will love you to the very last breath of this life, wanting you to become His child, whether for the first time or restored again? You know that's who He is. He's just told us that's who He is. The wandering still belong to the flock. I don't care if it's been a year or 12 years. You don't give up. Okay? You keep blessing. Let's read a few of these passages. Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel is a fascinating book. Okay? The poor prophet. I feel bad for Ezekiel, the prophet. Some of the things God asked him to do and challenged him to do, there are a lot of these object lessons God wanted him to do. They were tough. And Ezekiel couldn't even abide by some of them. At one point, God says, okay, as part of what I want to show you how filthy with sin my lost sheep have become. So I want you to go outside and cook your breakfast over your own dung. That's in the Bible, okay? I'm not making that up. This is my one gross thing. I want you to go cook your breakfast over your dung. Ezekiel tells God, I don't think I can do that. I'm with you, Ezekiel, okay? I don't think I can do that. Do you think we could cook this some other way? Some other way. And God does make an accommodation for him. But He still makes Ezekiel write it down and make sure that people could see later, this is how bad it was. Okay? And so throughout the book of Ezekiel, there are a lot of crazy things like that. But don't get lost in the crazy things, because they're all there to show how unrelenting God is in His pursuit of redeeming His people. He goes way out of His way to redeem His people and goes to lengths that make us go, I don't know about that part. That's how much He loves us. So in chapter 34, he's hitting on this again. And let's read 11 to 16. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will search for my sheep and look after them, as a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them. So I will look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on a day of clouds and darkness. I will bring them out from the nations and gather them from the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the ravines and in all the settlements in the land. I will tend them in a good pasture, and the mountain heights of Israel will be their grazing land. There they will lie down in good grazing land, and there will be feed in a rich pasture on the mountains of Israel. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the sovereign Lord. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak. But the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd the flock with justice. The sleek and the strong He will destroy are those who despised His little ones. They're those who led them astray. They're those who took advantage of them. But what does He say about His little ones? I will go as far as I have to go, and I will bring them back. And I will bless them, and I will bless them, and I will bless them. This is what Jesus wants us to see in Matthew 18 as well. Go over to Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. I'm going to go on to verse 2. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. There are so many ways in which we have told people you have to fulfill the law of Christ. The ways that you worship, the ways that you do different things, the terms that you use and that you don't use, the sign that's out in front of your building. But in Galatians 6, Paul tells the people of God, this is how you actually fulfill the law of Christ. You bear one another's burdens. When somebody's lost, you go and you gently bring them back. You see somebody caught in a sin, you don't make a Facebook post. Just the other day, somebody who wasn't here, by the way, somebody who ought to know way better went on Facebook and wrote a post that long on a phone screen. You know, it would have been that long if the phone was that long. All about a relative of theirs who's caught up in some pretty bad things. Some of it outside of their control. That's not how you do it. That person needs love and care and an ear. That person needs prayer and diligence. And you're probably going to have to repeat some things about, yes, we love you, and yes, we think you're worthy. But don't you have enough shame when you sin to cover the whole thing? You don't need anybody else's put on you. Brothers and sisters, if somebody's caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. Gently. Let that sink in. We'll come back to James 5:19 because that applies elsewhere as well. Now what I want you to do right now is to think. Who is somebody that you love that is wandering? Who is somebody you love that you know is far or becoming farther from God? Somebody you have influenced. Somebody God's been putting on your heart, and He doesn't do that without a reason. Who is that person? That person is your assignment from God today. Pray for them. Seek them out. And be somebody who rescues somebody else gently from the grip of sin or just hurt and pain. It's not always about sins people are caught up in. Sometimes it's the effects of someone else's sin on them. They're just too hurt and broken. Go and listen. So first you have to notice, don't you? Can't be indifferent and live this. So notice when don't be a policeman, don't be a watchdog, don't be nosy, but notice, pay attention before that distance becomes a complete disappearance into the thicket. Because anybody that you can help sooner rather than later, that's always better, right? It's always better if somebody helps us to miss the whole wandering off to begin with. And sometimes we can prevent people from ever becoming the lost sheep in the first place. Then reach out personally. Don't wait for somebody. Well, I was hoping the elders would do that. I was hoping James would do that. I was hoping so-and-so would do that. You do it. Say, well, but I'm kind of shy about that. That's fine. That's called gently. He said, go and restore them gently. You might be the person. Sometimes there are people who are a little too eager. I saw them do something. I'm going to go get them. That may not need to be you. Okay? If you're shy about it, good. Because He said, watch yourself, that you may also be tempted. And sometimes that temptation is to be too harsh or too judgmental. But sometimes the temptation is to do nothing. Don't do that either. So reach out. Just contact them gently, positively, and let them know that somebody actually cares. If they do, don't force it. If they do open up to you and say, you know, I've really been struggling with this. Just listen. Just listen. Don't even try to fix it. Just listen. Pray with them. Pray for them. But just try to understand where they are and what they're going through. That alone may be more than they've ever gotten before. And that may make the difference. And then again, when it comes time to say, you know, I think probably there, you might have to make some changes. And you may need to find a gentle way to say that. You might have to make some changes, and I'm here to help you through this. I'll support you, and I'll pray for you, and if you need to call somebody and talk to them about it, you got my number. Do that. But remember that your purpose is always going to be to rescue. It's not to shame. It's to reconcile them to one another, reconcile them to the Lord, reconcile them to the church. It's for their good. It's not about you. It's never about you. It's not about, oh, look who I brought back. Forget that stuff. It's about them being restored in their relationship with God. When that happens, we get to verse 13 and 14. And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he is happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones, these believers, should perish. No, he is thrilled. He is party-throwing thrilled. We sang the song earlier about the reckless love of God. You know, we call in the parable of the son who wanders off, we call that the prodigal son. The word prodigal does not mean lost. The word prodigal means that you're reckless. You're reckless. That's why there are some who believe that it should not be called the prodigal son at all. It should be called the parable of the prodigal father. Because it's not about being lost. It's about being reckless. And God in His love, and God in trusting the process, was reckless in our eyes. He's the Father who gave over the inheritance when we would have said, no, you're not ready for that. He gives us free will before we're ever ready for that. He takes all the risks, and it looks very reckless when you look at it from that point of view. And then He spends all this money on this son who's just come back. And the older brother, and maybe some of us, look at that and go, I don't know if you ought to spend that yet. He just got back. Maybe give him 6 weeks to prove himself. But the father just recklessly kills the fatted calf. Recklessly gives him his robe. Recklessly gives him new shoes. Recklessly welcomes this wandering son back into his house. Aren't you glad God's reckless? Aren't you glad He doesn't do everything quite as practically and as logically as we would? Because we would leave some of those people outside. We would leave some of those people lost. Too messy, too much work, too much trouble. But not to God. We're only here because He said, no, they're not. In the same way, our Father is not willing that any of these little ones should perish. In Luke 15, He is using the same kind of an image, same kind of a parable. And He says that He calls His friends and neighbors together and says, rejoice with me. He throws a party because that's how happy He is. And isn't that what church is supposed to be? When somebody comes back to the Lord, what should we be? Suspicious or partying? Which brother are we supposed to be in that parable? Which person? We're supposed to be the brother that doesn't exist in that parable, aren't we? The one who was excited about what the Father was doing? I don't know where that guy was. But that's supposed to be us. We're supposed to be the ones He calls together. In James 5:19-20, whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover a multitude of sins. And I'm pretty convinced that last phrase, cover over a multitude of sins, is probably not just the sins of the person that we've just saved. I think there may be two-way redemption there. I think we find the depth of grace to be greater than we understood when we share it. I think we become a better redeemed people when we redeem others. We're not earning anything, but boy, we'll understand it a whole lot better. And love covers a multitude of sins. So in a way, James is saying, this is what love looks like. When you care enough to go and to rescue. So, let's go back to your one. Here are a few things that I want to encourage you to do. Number one, pray for that person. That seems like the most obvious, right? Because before anybody can go and deal with such a situation, you got to pray. So pray for that person. Number two, make contact with that person. Gentle contact, personal contact, just an encouragement. know where you've been, none of that. People, let me just tell you something. This is one of the rough parts of being a preacher. People assume, if you haven't seen them for a while, they assume that the preacher is going to try and put some kind of a guilt trip. Because there are those preachers, right? I'm not that guy, but there are those guys. And we all know them. Same thing, when you become an elder, suddenly people will respond to you differently when you say, how are you doing? It's one of those things. It's one of the dangers of the job. If you're the person wandering and somebody contacts you, just take it for what it is. They care about you. They love you. And they really do want to know that you're okay. Don't take it any other way. But if you're the person who's going, make sure what I just said is true. Make sure that's the truth. You love them. You just care about them. God, and you matter to me too. You matter to us, and we've missed you. And we just want you to know that we love you. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. I don't know about you, but I would like church to be this kind of a party in the image. This is what it ought to be. Look who's come to Jesus now. Look who's come home now. Let's have another party. Pray together.